So what are the implications for virtual worlds? Well, the first one is that we're going to be able to use the benefits of the cheap revolution. The cloud, all these great new services are going to provide much easier access, much cheaper access to huge amounts of computing power and storage. It's going to make it a lot easier to use these tools. You're not going to have to hire your own team to manage your own piece of the infrastructure. And because there's so much power out there, tools will be simpler to use. And we've seen that trend over the last 10 years, and it's accelerating. Within the world of virtual worlds, we're going to have more sophisticated physics engines, much more realistic experiences. Second big implication is that the Internet of Things will give us this huge amount of data, hundreds of billions of devices collecting data about the real world that can be used to inform virtual models of the real world. I love this term, second Earth. Other people have other terms for it, but it's an idea. The idea is that you have a virtual world that is a reflection of the real world. Real-time data is being collected from cameras, from sensors, from individuals in the real world reporting on what's going on there, and it's all reflected in an integrated simulation, which you can maneuver around in just like you would in Second Life. Very powerful technology. A number of academic institutions that are running these. The intelligence agencies obviously have some real interest in making this happen, and they're putting real money into it. Third point is that the demand of this community and the virtual worlds community is going to cause some of the increase that's leading to the exaflood. So you're a big chunk of this new demand on the network. Fourth point is that the virtual world community can help bring the pieces of the cloud together. You're in a position to say, hey, I want that piece of software to run on in my virtual world, and I want that data plugged in. You're going to be asking for different cloud service providers to make their pieces work together so that you can take advantage of it in a single virtual world. And so you're going to tackle some of those problems. And I think that's I think optimistic, and it's good news for us to have a community that is on the leading edge, doing really exciting things, has captured the public imagination, and they're demanding interoperability. And then the last point is that you're the lucky ones. By going out there and being in the vanguard in the development of cloud services, you're going to run into a whole bunch of really thorny policy problems. Many of them are similar to the ones that other cloud services will run into. But you get to break through and make sure it all works. And that's going to be the challenge. The next few slides outline why that's such a challenge. So lots of different areas of concern in policy. This list could be longer, and my paper does cover several other points. But the first one is open standards. So let's start there. Tough questions here. How will these virtual worlds interconnect? Will I be able to move avatars from one world to the other? How much interoperability do we really need? Clearly, there are virtual worlds that should be islands and will be off by themselves. I don't necessarily want my my daughter, who's hanging out in Webkins, to have strange creatures from the world of Warcraft popping into her igloo or whatever she's built. How many of you have kids in the 8 to 15 range? Yeah. It's been fascinating to watch my daughter as she's progressed from Club Penguin to Webkins, and now she's very excited about getting on to teen Second Life, although I'm not sure she's ready for that because she's only turned 12. And then the last question here is what role does government have? How are we going to push for open standards? How are we going to push for interoperability? We certainly have dollars, so we have the carrot. We also have some sticks to use in this area, but we want to do it right. We don't want to try to plan the whole virtual world going forward. We want to leave opportunity for innovation and competition and experimentation. Second question is intellectual property. This has been a problem since I first got involved in the internet 20 years ago. This is a showstopper issue. So what is fair use in a virtual world? If I have my virtual living room and I want to play some background music from a CD that I own, is that fair use? Or am I broadcasting that to the world? And how's that different when my little party for 5 people in my living room instead is a party for 50 people in the backyard, or a block party for 500 people? At what point am I violating the rules of copyright? And whose rules apply? Virtual worlds in a lot of different places. Servers are in a lot of different places. A lot of different people coming from different countries. Another issue of particular importance to some of the people in this room is wiretapping and electronic surveillance. Who gets access to Second Life data? People are living lives there. Some of the numbers are extraordinary. People are spending 10, 15, 25 hours a week. Sometimes they're barely there. They just have the screen on and they're kind of watching who's going into the Irish bar that they hang out at. But they're still there. And they're meeting people, they're communicating, they're exchanging money or something that looks like money that can be converted into real money. Who gets access to that under what conditions? We might understand how to answer that question in the US. What about France? What about Russia? What about China? And again, whose national laws apply? Consumer protection. Is there any need for government regulation? We've had some interesting lawsuits already in Second Life. There are contracts that are written up, but again, who enforces them? If a company goes out of business and all the intellectual property that you've created in a particular virtual world just ceases to be available, do you have any recourse? And what about out-of-world transactions? When you build something in Second Life or you create a new service and then you want to sell that intellectual property for real dollars in the outside world, how is that handled? And how are contracts that span the virtual world and the real world enforced? Another interesting issue that hasn't gotten much attention at all is, how do you create a company? And do you have virtual life corporations? The state of Vermont has been grappling with the issue. They have decided that they want to be the Delaware of virtual worlds. As you know, most or a good chunk of American companies are incorporated in Delaware because of the business-friendly rules they have for incorporation. Vermont is trying to create a framework that provides for incorporation of virtual companies where the board may never meet in person, where you may have employees in 7 or 8 different countries. They haven't quite figured out how to enforce some of this and how to monitor some of this, but they're making some good progress. Taxation and tariffs, another big issue. Whenever you start talking about taxes in Washington, people start paying attention, particularly in this era when we're looking to make up trillion-dollar deficits. But how do you collect it? Do you collect them in Linden dollars? Or do you wait until someone converts the Linden dollars into real dollars? And who does the tracking? How do you do the paperwork? And where is the products that you're getting in Second Life actually being created? And let's turn to the toughest questions of all: security, identity, and trust. How much anonymity should you have? What's good for individuals? What's good for society? When you create an identity and a reputation in one world, do we have some mechanism for taking that to another world? Several different companies working on very exciting opportunities here, trying to figure out a way to create a reputation management system so that you can create an identity in Second Life, eBay, Facebook, and somehow bring it all together and verify it. We know there's not going to be one identity system, so how do we federate them? How do we allow different identity systems to recognize each other? And again, what is government's role?